Ah, hello everyone, and welcome to a beginner's guide to the Pathfinder system adaptation on computer RPG, Kingmaker, and Wrath of the Righteous. This guide will mostly be made in the Kingmaker game, but it's probably going to be the exact same system for the basis at the very least as in Wrath of the Righteous. If anything changes, be it big or small, I'll make sure to cover it in another guide I'll make when the game comes out. But this is just to get ahead of the pack, and honestly for the newcomers that might want to get into the game as it releases but don't really know how to, because let's face it, it is an impressive game but also a very intimidating game. And even I almost didn't fully get into it, which would have been bad because it was my favorite game of the year, basically, since I discovered it this year. Before getting into the guide, we kind of have to understand where Pathfinder comes from. And now, I know what you're gonna say. I'm gonna sound like the old annoying history teacher. But it's important because there's a whole philosophy behind it. You see, Pathfinder is based on the D&D pen and paper games. Now, D&D had many editions where rules changed to make it harder or easier for new people to come in. Those rules mostly affected combat. Now, in D&D 3.5e, combat was kind of complicated. You know, it was a different iteration from second edition, which is probably most people's favorite edition if they ever played it. But when 4th edition came out, right after 3.5, it dumped down the combat and made it really boring for a lot of people. A lot of people were annoyed by it, precisely, and those people, well, some of them, made Pathfinder a community-made D&D that really fortified the rules. So why is the game so hard to get into? Well, it's precisely because it was made for the hardcore fans of D&D 3.5e. Now, what does that mean for you, a newcomer? Well, hopefully after this guide, you'll understand enough about the system to get around, at the very least, on normal or challenging difficulty. And most importantly, understand what you are doing, because a lot of numbers in these games, but it ain't all that hard. So without further ado, let's get into the guide. So whenever you're gonna start the game, you're gonna get this magnificent screen, and you're gonna be prompted with the new game button. So let's get into it. If you have the DLC and everything, you might click on those, but for now we're just gonna go into the main story and talk about a few things. You're gonna choose the difficulty. Now, people who say the game is really hard play on unfair, or sometimes hard difficulty. But honestly, you can get around on challenging, and even then, it's very manageable. It tells you at the bottom, choosing this difficulty is not recommended for the player not familiar with the Pathfinder system, but after this guide, hopefully you will be. When you try to go on hard, that's where they prompt you with this thing. Basically, for hard, you need to really know your stuff. And for unfair, you basically need cookie cutter builds, which you can find on the internet, but, and if that's your fun, knock yourself out by any means. But for now, we're just gonna put it on challenging or normal. You know, if you really struggle, you can put it on easy. I think any lower than... I think story is ridiculous, but you know, that's fine. For now, it doesn't really matter though. I think you can change it along the way anyways. For the character, we're just gonna create a new, and I'm going to explain a few things. Now I'm just gonna move my camera a tiny bit. So this is the screen we're gonna use for most of the guide. Why? Because it tells you everything you need to know about the system. So we'll just go about all the elements they have here, and hopefully by the end of this guide you'll understand all of them. Don't worry about the classes, don't worry about the races, don't worry about the skills, the backgrounds, we'll all go into that later. And probably in another guide. They are not important to the system, right? If you understand the system, you'll be able to make any classes work that you want, and that's the fun of CRPG. I'm not gonna make a guide to tell you which classes are fun or when to take a dip into monk. You know, you probably read that a lot on the Reddit or on the guides. So let's just go about it little by little. Now it's important to understand, first things first, that these games are made after the pen and paper experience, where there's a DM, and that DM makes you roll dice for pretty much everything. Dice rolling is the main interaction the player will have with the game. So how do you replicate that on computer? Well, technically you wouldn't have to roll dice, but to stay true to its identity, the game is gonna roll dice behind the screen for almost everything, and it's gonna roll for you. You can see those, I'll show you how. You can see those, but it's still dice rolling in its essence, which is great. I love that idea. That means that there's always a chance for success if you roll a 20, and there's always a chance for failure if you roll a 1. Most of the attributes, the skills, the points you're gonna have, the modifiers, they're all gonna, as I said, modify those rolls. So let's get into it, right? You're gonna be given a few points to put into your skills. Those are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. I'm gonna go into those real fast because they are pretty self-explanatory, and every classes need at least one of those. So let's get into it. Strength is gonna decide your melee attack rolls most of the times. I'm pretty sure you can have a dexterity fighter. I never had that in this game. I know how it works in D&D with finesse weapons, but I'm unsure about this game, so I'm not gonna talk too much about that. But most of the time when you see a big strong fighter, it's gonna be a strength based character, and so just putting points in strength is gonna allow you to hit more attacks and to do more damage with those. Dexterity is going to be for ranged attacks. Now that it's important to note that in Pathfinder, arcane classes that need to hit attack rolls need dexterity because those spells are classified as ranged attack. So if you're a caster, you might want to put dexterity in it. I'll cover this in a class guide I'll do later on, but it's important to note. Constitution is going to be your HP. Basically, the more constitution you have, the stronger you are. There are also fortitude saving throws, which we'll get into the saving throws once again later. But those things are going to be modified by constitution. You're going to be more resilient, essentially, and you're just going to be harder to take down in any sense of the way. Intelligence, wisdom, and charisma all affect skills here at the top right. Some class will require one of these, some class will require two of these. It's basically all the same for the classes, right? It's gonna talk about how your spells are gonna be, how strong your spells are going to be. The modifier basically just applies that to that. If you're a wizard, you're gonna use intelligence. If you're a cleric, you're gonna use wisdom. And if you're a sorcerer, you're going to use charisma. Now, this all sounds complicated and all. Don't worry about it. whenever you choose a class that you want, it's going to be really easy. You just put points in the thing you need. Those modifiers affect skills here. As you can see, there's a bunch of them, and the game is going to roll a d20 for most of these. So let's say you want to cross a bridge, but the bridge is really worn down. You might have to do an athletic check, which is modified by the strength attribute. If you want to persuade someone to do something, you're gonna have to do a persuasion check. Check meaning they're gonna roll for you. That's gonna be a d20 plus your persuasion, right? Knowledge Arcana is basically when you're gonna get a magic item, essentially. Knowledge World is sometime during the world you're going to have to identify stuff. Those are both modified by intelligence. Lore for nature and religion is going to be wisdom. Basically it's just gonna give you more information, which is fine. Mobility, basically you're gonna be able to move more, to resist trip attack, to resist attack of opportunity, which is all stuff you don't understand right now because I'm gonna talk about combat soon. But mobility is a thing, it's gonna roll for it, and it is modified by dexterity. Perception is a very specific one. It's going to be essentially in the world or on the map, wherever you are, essentially. There are traps, there are hidden treasures and such. And what perception does is every character is going to roll independently a d20. How hard the item, the thing, the trap, the monster is to see is going to be defined by a certain number. So let's say it's really hard to see said item and you need to roll a 20 to see it. Well, you're going to roll a d20. Now, let's be honest, a d20, to roll 20, it's basically 5% chance. But if you have 10 perception, that means it's gonna add, if you have plus 10 wisdom modifier or something like that to add to your perception check, when you roll the d20, you're gonna add 10 to the result. Therefore, you just need to roll a 10 or higher, because it's gonna be 10 plus 10, 11 plus 10, 12 plus 10, which is all going to beat 20. If you roll a 5, it's gonna be 5 plus 10, which is 15, so you're not gonna be able to see it. So having a few people with high perception is always good, and you can see how the system makes it always ambivalent. If you're gonna fail or succeed, there's always a chance for both. Stealth is essentially the opposite of perception. You're trying not to be seen, and if you stealth, you're going to fight that player's perception. That means you're both going to roll one against another. Kind of in the same way I said about the item, it had a number that you had to reach, the number was static. If it's you, the stealth number is going to be what you roll, and the perception number is the NPC's perception number as they're going to roll. Trickery is for disarming traps, doors, chest. It's pretty good. You need at least one person with high trickery, or you're gonna be in a bad spot. And essentially, it's it's modified by dex. So is stealth. Use magic device is a weird one. All right, it is charisma based, and it's basically how well you can use wands, scrolls, and other stuff like that, like cursed item. Essentially, you just need to meet the charisma modifier it needs to have. That's pretty easy. So those are all the skills. Now they're gonna roll for a lot of those behind the scene, and you're not always gonna be able to see it, but It's important to keep in mind that, let's say, you have a character with high dexterity, you put a lot of stealth and trickery on them, they can sneak around. You'll know they'll be good. You might not understand how it's rolled, but you know they're going to be good at it, right? Same is with high wisdom. You're gonna have perception, lore, and like nature and religion. Now, you might not always know or understand when it's useful to have those, but you're going to have those. So you just have to know that one of your character will see things the others probably won't. That's all there is to it. Now we're going to get into the attacks, saving throws, and armor class. So yeah. So for the saving throws, attacks, and everything, it's pretty simple. So basically it tells you what it's gonna add to the d20 it rolls. Your attack with a melee weapon is going to be the following. Your base attack bonus, which is going to be defined by the weapon itself, your strength modifier, and everything. Most melee class will get base attack bonuses. It sounds weird, but let's say you're a fighter at level 6, I believe, and every 6 level from there, you're gonna get plus X amount to attack. Essentially, it just means melee class are gonna be able to hit things all the time, even if their AC goes up. Strength modifier goes into that a lot also, because every few level you'll be able to put more points in strength, and your size goes up in this. What I mean is that if you're larger, you can hit stuff, but you're easier to be hit, and if you're smaller, it's harder to hit stuff, but you're harder to hit also. Ranged attack are based with dexterity. Basically, that's what it says here. Base attack bonus goes just the same as the base attack bonus for melee characters. Ranged characters are gonna get a few bonuses to their hit chance, essentially. Dexterity modifier, just like strength. Size modifier, just like strength, melee attack check, I mean. And range penalty. Now this is interesting, right? Because some weapons, like light crossbow and stuff like that, will get worse with range. I think they are best at 30 feet away from the enemy, and they get slightly worse at 60, which is their maximum range, I assume. So this is interesting, right? Because you might not always be able to hit stuff, but I'm pretty sure stuff like longbow can still hit from really far away. Combat maneuver, I'm gonna be honest, I never really looked into it, and I don't think it's that interesting. I think it just basically means that if you're bigger, you're easier to hit, but like the bigger you are, you can also hit better, essentially. So initiative is something that is very, very important in the game. How does it work? When combat starts, it basically decides a turn order in which people will act. The faster you act, the faster you can get your stuff off. It all seems like, oh, everybody's gonna get a turn, but that's not true, is it? Because if all of your party goes first, you might kill 1 or 2 enemy in the first turn before they ever get to act. And then their turn is just like if it never existed, right? So initiative is really, 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 really important. You need a few people with high initiative, and if you have like a wizard, sorcerer, or arcane caster in any mean, having high initiative on them is going to be nuts, because they can literally stun and crowd control and occupy the enemy forever. They just need a chance to start it off. So how is it calculated? Well, here it actually tells you that it rolls a d20. D20 is a dice with 20 sides. If you've ever played D&D, you know what it is, but if not, you can just Google it right now. It is very, very important to know. It's what the game is gonna roll all the time, as I said in the beginning. So, it's gonna roll a d20 for every creature, and then it's gonna add their dexterity modifier and any bonus modifier. Now that doesn't tell you much, right? But essentially, how do I say? Some items in the game will give you modifier to certain things, and initiative is one of those. Some classes get bonuses to their initiative just because the class is really agile and it would make sense for them to go first, right? Like a monk will go first, stuff like that. So they have dexterity bonus, but they also have a hidden bonus that they'll get along the game that they can choose, and that's basically what any bonus modifier means. But for now, for the beginning, it's not as important. All you need to know is how important initiative can be. Let's move on to armor class and saving throw, this little section here. So differently than D&D 5e, which is the one I played the most, where you have one value for the AC, meaning armor class, meaning how hard you are to hit. This game decided to have 3 because, let's be honest, it makes sense, right? So how is your AC calculated, basically? Well, it's a flat 10 for nearly everything, and then if you have armor and shields, it adds to that, and then dexterity bonus because you can dodge attacks, and then other modifiers such as ring of protection and stuff like that. So some armor will make you less dexterous, right? So if you have plus 10 modifier in dexterity, it's only gonna use like 4 of those, which is still good, but it's understandable that someone in full plate armor may not be able to dodge every single attack. That's the simplest one to understand. I think it's pretty easy. It's if you understand AC, you understand half of the game. Now, they decided to have something called flat-footed AC and touch AC, so let's get into it. Flat-footed basically means that if you haven't acted in combat yet, meaning it's the first turn and you did not have... It's the first round and you didn't have your turn yet, so your initiative was very low. It would make sense you're kind of surprised and you don't have time to dodge every attack, so it doesn't add any dexterity bonus. So for melee classes, it's not that bad. Well, for some armor classes, I mean, it's not all that bad, but for some unarmored class, like the monk, it's really, 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 really bad. So that's why you need high dexterity, high initiative, I mean, which the classes with high dexterity bonus usually go first. So, you know, it kind of counteracts itself, but it's just mainly for surprise rounds and everything like that. Touch AC is where it gets important, and you see this and you're like, oh my god, that's going to be hell to remember. So I'll give you one simple trick, alright? Touch AC is very, very simple. So, how does it work? Well, essentially, touch AC is for spells or attacks that don't care about armor, right? If a mage sends you a ball of corrosive acid and you block it with your shield, it's still gonna do damage to you, right? Therefore, your armor bonuses don't really apply. So this is mostly for Arcane Caster and Divine Caster. I'm unsure exactly what has it, but every attack that can deal touch AC will, and it will also tell you if it deals touch AC. So that way you can focus the big armored bulky guy. Now you could still dodge those attacks in theory, right? And your size modifier will apply. So it's basically the inverse of flat-footed, whereas flat-footed would take only 10 plus your armor bonuses, this takes only 10 plus your dexterity bonuses. That means it's much easier to hit, unless it's like a monk or something, right? But it's just something that's good to keep in mind. Most of the Arcane Caster spell that need to roll for attacks, since they're not getting many bonus to attack rolls, comparatively to what a melee class would do. This is basically there to bypass this mechanic, where they can still hit stuff. So yeah. The speed is basically how far you can go in combat. You can move 30 feet and then you can dash another 30 if you want to use your action for that. Smaller creature have smaller movement speed. That's basically all there is to it. I'll talk about it more in a actual combat video. This is the saving throws I was talking about: Fortitude, Reflex, and Will. They're all going to happen for different reasons, mostly when the enemies attack you with a status effect or with an attack that would make you trip or something. So Fortitude just means you're hard to take down, Reflex means you dodge stuff really well, and Will means that your mind cannot be afflicted in the broadest sense of the term. So Will saves you against mages with status effect. Reflex saves you against mages, grenadiers, and stuff like that, which make explosion, which you can dodge. And Fortitude makes you good against a big burly armor guy that will make you fall to the ground with a single attack. That's basically all there is to it for the moment. As you choose a class, it gets much more complicated. Well, not complicated, but you'll see the bonuses apply. So let's say real quick, I want to be a barbarian, right? And I put all my points into strength and all into con. I dump int to the lowest, and I dump wisdom to the lowest. I put some more into con, and let's say dex, why not? I'm gonna put a bonus into strength, so you can see the bonus modifier here, and you can see the AC here, right? Now, since I'm very strong, I'm gonna put in athletics, and I don't know, I'll say like one of those two. This is just to show you guys, by the way, it's not really important. We'll get feat, which I'll cover in something else, but I really like a great sword, and I'll take power attack. I'll just take whichever. Oops. We'll just call it test. And you can see now at the end the modifiers here, the bonus to attack, the flat-footed, AC, touch AC, initiative because I have one dex, and how the skills are chosen, right? This was made really quickly, but it was just to show you how this screen would look when it was filled up. So now that we talked about the system, I'll basically show you in the game in a fight scene so you can understand more or less how everything is going to turn out. Let's see you guys then. So here we are for the combat video, well, section of the video. This is my party for the Kingmaker game. It's not really any spoilers. To be honest, like this is kind of early on in the game. There won't be any spoiler. This is just a randomized battle. I didn't want to take a battle too early on because nothing really happens. But I'll just use this battle to showcase what each character can do. In order, we have a wizard,
No mistakes.
we have a inquisitor, we have a bard, we have a tower shield fighter for the front line, we have
Something
a
bothering
cleric,
you?
and we have a kineticist. I can never say those, like that class's name. But anyways, this is the party for the time being, and I think it showcases both two martial people, one range support, another range support that can go into melee a little bit, and two far backline blasters. So, without further ado, let's walk forward and fight some owlbear.
To victory!
So I would fight in turn-based mode just because I really like to get the most out of the characters. So let's do a few things first. So here is the combat log on the right. If you hover over it, you can check the roll, like 10 plus 9 and stuff like that. So basically we had a random knowledge check because we had an item, and we have this roll that was made. It was a difficulty 20. I rolled a 13 with 10 modifier, so that's a 23. So 23 beats 20, therefore I could identify the object. Now, early on in the video, I talked about flat-footed AC. As you can see, it's this little symbol here with like the little knife. Like this is the bigger picture. Everyone who didn't have a turn has it, even the enemies. Therefore, the enemies aren't gonna get any armor bonus. These guys are owlbears, therefore it's not that big of a deal, but you know, it's still pretty cool. So, we're gonna move and everything. Pathfinder has a very specific combat method. So I'll go over it right now because I was fairly confused coming from 5e to Pathfinder. You get 5 foot of free movement anywhere in your turn. You also get a free action and a swift action anywhere in your turn. These can be like drinking a potion or something. So like I want to drink a potion of Vanish, I'll do this. And never mind, this actually counts as my move action. So now you see I could use the rest of my move to... I could use my action to move. I could also use it to fire at them, right? In this precise case, I'm going to move. And now, like when I'm done with moving, I can't do anything anymore. I used everything. I could do a swift or free action, but that's about it. Let's pass the turn to my wizard, which will have some more things to talk about right now. So, the wizard has spells. To see the spells, you just click on the S here. It's by school, so the cantrips are here. First level are here, second level are here, third level are here, and fourth level are here. You can cast stuff. Some spells will require a full action. You can actually see that in full round right there. Casting time. It tells you the target, the duration, so it's one round per level. So as I am a 7th level wizard, it will be 7 round. I mean, there's no resistance to be had because it's summoning something, and the casting time is a full round. Now, some spell, the casting time will be a standard action. And some spells you can cast as anything, but I don't think I have any right now. So, let's start the fight the right way, and we'll summon a big bad direwolf. So now you can see, we'll hide the spellbook. Now you can see that the direwolf information has been added, so you can see what the direwolf is all about. It's pretty strong, but it is pretty strong. Now, since I still have my free movement of 5 feet, I will move in a direction, and this is pretty much the end of the turn. I could do a free or a swift action if I had one, but since I don't, I will just pass the turn to this owlbear here. There are 4 owlbears, so you know, we'll just have to fight off all of them. So we'll just pass. He will be added to the initiative, but he won't be anything right now. The owlbear just moves because they don't have much to do. Now this is an Inquisitor. It is a character who focuses on buffing herself and doing big attacks. As you can see, she also has a spellbook. She has cantrips, first level and second levels. She also has actions. You can see here a lot of them. She has a lot of the judgments stuff, so she can resist magic, she can resist elements, she can resist a lot of things. The main one I'll use is piercing or justice. So, since she's an Inquisitor, I'm going to use a bunch of buffs on her, essentially, and I'm just going to move a little bit on the side. By the way, quick shortcut, if you want to move, sometimes it's gonna focuses on enemies, so you can't really move past them like I would like to move here. So if you hold control, it's gonna let you move wherever you want without clipping to enemies. Also, very important to note, if you move away from an enemy, you see that little red line from the enemy to me. That means that at this exact point, I will trigger an attack of opportunity. They get 1 per round, each enemy. If you get up or you cast a spell in their face, they're going to use that attack on you. It's basically a free attack, and if you move away, they're also going to use that. So we're just going to pass a turn. We buffed a bit. Now, the cleric, he also has his spells. He has cantrips, he has first level and second level. He also has actions. He can touch of good, rebuke death, positive energy to damage the undead, and to heal the living. He also has a blessing that makes it better when you attack, so we're gonna put this on our friend here. We're gonna close this and we're gonna use our move action to move backward a little bit. Here we go. Now to the bard. She is a buffer. She has spells also, first level and second level. You can see she has a lot of uses on them, but she also has really good actions. Few of them are Fascinate. Fascinate makes it so they won't be able to attack unless they are attacked. So we are going to do that, and it's gonna force them to do a will save, as we talked about. So they are gonna roll a d20, and they are going to make a will save. And we can see here what they rolled. So the difficulty of the will save is 16. So in order to resist it, they have to beat 16. They rolled 19, which was very lucky of them, and then +5, meaning they rolled a 24, which definitely beats 16, therefore they are unaffected. But every single one of those that will walk into me will have to do this. So I'm actually gonna move right here, just so whenever they walk around, they're gonna be targeted by it. So the owlbears are all going to move. We can fast forward by pressing space and watching them. So you see, those two, they failed. All right. So now they're incapacitated until we attack them. I think they can repeat the will save every turn. But see, this one rolled a 1 + 5, meaning 6, and this one rolled a 6, plus 5, meaning 11. They both failed it. This one did succeed though. As you can see here, he rolled a 13 plus 5. He rolled a 18 on 16, basically. This is will save. Basically, the modifiers they roll with is their intelligence or wisdom, I believe. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Now we have our big tank, we have our face. She's going to move, and she's gonna drink her potion that makes her strong. And she's just gonna stand there. Now, this is round 2. Okay? It goes by rounds like that. Now she can move. We're not gonna attack any of those two because they are CC'd. We're gonna attack those two here. So which one shall we go first? This one is more threatening, so she's going to attack. I'm not gonna spend too much time explaining the kinesis attack. It's kind of complicated for nothing, but I will just attack with her for the moment. In the class guides, I'll probably have a whole section for them. Now, you can see I have a lot more spells. Now, the wizard, one thing they're really good at is buffing the party. Yes, I know they are crowd control buff. Damage is not their great point, but one of the best buff you can give your party is haste. It's gonna make everybody get another attack, essentially, and they get more AC. So we're gonna cast Ace on her. It's gonna hit everyone in our party. And now they're all going to be really good. By the way, you can cast Ace before the combat. It's gonna last for a while, right? If we hover over it. It says 1 round per level. 1 round being 6 seconds if you're unaware. Therefore, it's gonna last for 7 rounds at 7th level wizard, which is really good. So we can just leave. As you can see here, 7 rounds is 42 seconds. So we could have done this before and run into battle. I just didn't want to confuse more people, but usually that is a technique I will use. Also, you'll notice that since I used a spell, I cannot use the move action. This is a thing specific to Pathfinder from 5e. You know, in 5e you can move whenever you want and you can use your spells whenever you want. In Pathfinder, one thing that screwed me over the most when I started is that you need to move before you use an action, because some action will be full round actions, right? Therefore, it's gonna use your move action by default. So yeah, you just need to move. So here, if I wanted to get away, I should have moved before. So let's say I wanted to be here, I should have moved before and then cast Ace. Right now it didn't matter, but it screwed me over more than one time. So we're gonna use our 5 feet of movements, and we are going to pass to our direwolf. Just gonna attack the closest things. He lands one and he misses one. This is actually the first few attacks we have in a while, so let's take a look at this on the side. So the direwolf, okay, so he did attack the owlbear. You can see the whole thing. The first attack you saw hit, and the second one missed. So there's a roll for making the attack. Is it gonna land or is it not going to land? This is what hit bonuses were earlier in the video. So let's take a look at it now that we have actual numbers. So attack number 1 out of 2. That's because he did 2 attacks, and that's the first one. So he rolled an 11 and he has plus 12 to hit. That is 23. The armor class of the owlbear is 17, as we can see here. Therefore, it hits. So you can see why it's plus 12 underneath it, right? Its base attack bonus is 3, it has 6 strength, but it is big, so it has minus chances to hit. He is flanking. That is something when you have 2 people around a target, which gives plus 2. It's hidden, you'll never see it, except if you look at here. Haste gives bonus to hit, and he has a feat that we'll talk about another time called Weapon Focus for his Bites attack, which gives him a +1 again. The owlbear has a base value of 10 and something called natural armor, which most beasts will have, and his natural armor is +11. So it's 10 plus 11, which would be 21, but because he doesn't have good dexterity, he has -1. Since I'm playing on normal, he has -2. This will change with difficulty, so on challenging, I believe he would have 0 on difficulty, so he would technically have 19, would still have hit, but it's important to think about. And because it is a big creature, it has -1 to dodge. So that's how it hits. Now let's see how the damage was calculated. Every weapon has a different dice of damage. Dice damage are going to be written like this: 1d8, 1d20, 1d12, 1d4. The first number is basically the amounts of dice you roll. D just means dice, and 8 means the number of faces the dice has, and it also means the highest number it can roll. So this one can roll essentially up to 8. It has +9 to damage because it's basically its strength plus X modifier. So it rolled 1d8 plus 9 for 11 damage. That means the 1d8 rolled a 2, right? Because 2 plus 9 equals 11. That means he did near minimal damage to the owlbear, but it is what it is. The second attack. He tried to use a trip attack against the owlbear. So he rolled a 16. The target difficulty for this is 32. As you can see, the modifier is 11, so even if he rolled a 20, he would roll a 31, so it's almost impossible to trip the guy. So that failed. And then the second attack missed. He rolled a 1. He rolled a 1. So a 1 will always miss, no matter what. And then the owlbear did the same thing to Jaytal. So he rolled a 12 plus 20. It was a critical hit. No, he rolled a 19, which was a critical hit. And then, like, same math here. You can see the armor class of Jaytal is 26. Because of all the things she has. And yeah, that's essentially all there is to it. We could do the math, but it's a bit long. I just pointed out because it's important to see it's there. Sometimes you're gonna miss, you're gonna hit, you're not gonna know exactly why, and it's important to study this during the fights. That's basically all there is to it. So now she's going to attack. I'm gonna I'm gonna Judgment Smite, and I'm going to attack the owlbear twice. So you see I miss and I hit. Over the top, it was 19 versus 2. That means I need to roll a 2 on a d20 to hit, essentially. So I'm almost always gonna hit the owlbear. We can see the rolls here. So the owlbear has an armor class of 17, and I rolled a 19 plus 17. So you see, since I have a modifier of 17 and he has an armor class of 17, unless I roll a 1, I'm not gonna miss. Because even if I roll anything that's not a critical miss, I'm just gonna always hit. Because my modifier is higher than his AC. It's just how it is. The first one, I miss. Because the attack result was a natural 1. That is the only way. It's unlucky, but it is what it is. So since I didn't move before, I only have my 5 feet of movement as shown here. So I'm just gonna pass the turn. Now this guy is going to walk forward and use Bane. Bane is gonna make them have a worse chance to hit. So you can see here, some of them failed, and one of them succeed. You can see the exact math here, and the DC they needed to beat. So those that failed now all have Bane, which gives them -1 to hit. So we're gonna pass, and Lindsay is going to just hit this guy for a while. Once again, we could do the math. We just don't, but we're not gonna do the math. Oh, I move, so these are going to lose the Fascinated, but they're gonna have to reroll anyways. Okay, so he made the save this time, and he also made the save this time. This fight isn't going too well, but it was mostly just to show you how the fight was. Up top, you can see the HP bar, the turn order, and everything, by the way, but that was obvious, I'd assume. So we're gonna just like do some damage. Is my party blessed? I don't think my party's blessed, right? Yeah, no, they are not blessed, so I'm going to use bless. This is other bonuses again. I'm gonna move. So we killed one, and the other one sustained heavy damage. So which one is most hurt? This one is most hurt. So we're just going to do stuff like that. I can use single person. I'm gonna door here. These are just like spells I'm showing off just for the sake of it. It's not important. And I realize that this might be not the best use of your time for this fight. So I'm just going to quit it right now. But as you can see, it's the combat is something. The thing on the side is really important to know exactly what happens, and that's exactly why you need it. You can put it on combat, events, or all, and that's basically it. I'll see you guys for a outro, and yeah, that's gonna be about it. So this is the end of the guide as is. I know there's a lot I didn't touch on, like the feats, the different classes, and I think that's something I will do in another video. To be honest, I mainly wanted to do this just to show you guys that the game is not as hard as people make it out to be. It's hard to understand at first, that's for sure, but with enough reading, you can get through it. The game is fantastic, and Wrath of the Righteous promises to be even better. So, yeah, that's about it. The few things I didn't touch on, I'll make another guide, especially for the classes for Wrath of the Righteous, that is for certain. I will also be streaming, and I'll have a full playthrough of Wrath of the Righteous as a Lich Mage, well, Wizard Lich essentially, which is gonna be really fun to do. And yeah, just get the game, play it as much as you want, and you know, unless you're playing on unfair or something like that, the classes you decide to take is just flavorful. You know, you don't need a great party composition unless you're playing on like hard or unfair, and you don't need a perfect build. Honestly, I just suggest you to stick to just doing one class build, like full X class. If you want to be a barbarian, go full barbarian. If you want to be a paladin, go full paladin. If you want to be a wizard, go full wizard, because that is how you get the most, unless you know how to min-max. Yeah. With that being said, I won't take any more of your time. I just wanted to do a quick guide because it's something I would have liked to have when I started. And yeah, because the combat were really weird to me. Anyways, have a good one, guys. If there's anything I forgot, let me know. I might just add to the video as things go to make the absolute biggest guide there is to Pathfinder, but I'm scared people won't watch because of the length. But if there's anything you'd like a video on, let me know. And if you have any questions, you feel free to ask them in the comments. I will answer to the best of my ability. I am by no means a master of the game, but I feel I understand it enough and I have a fairly new perspective to it that I can probably help you through your problems. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next videos. Stay safe and learn much. Have a good one.